After 33 years in the fire service, one thing I can say for sure is that no matter what, there's going to be change. It's a constant. Every day and every year, we're going to experience changes to our professions. And our ability to be able to adapt to that change and learn from it, take advantage of it, is very important. One of the great examples, I'm sitting here entering fire reports. We got our first computer in '95. Prior to that, it was all handwritten reports, multiple copies going to multiple people. And it was a pretty big transition change to get people like me who weren't used to computers into being able to integrate that into what we do for training reports, fire reports. Pretty much everything that we do now is based electronically. That was a big change. But it's always been that way. Back when I started in the late 80s, it was hip boots. We literally were still using hip boots. And the transition from hip boots to regular, what we now know as our protective clothing, was a big deal. You had camps of people saying the expense was going to put us out of business. You had other camps saying it was going to slow us down. Now it's just something we do naturally. Same thing was true about tailboard riding. Even in the 80s, we were still riding tailboard, and it was a big deal to integrate riding in a cab and making sure seat belts were fastened. That was a major change to the way we did business. Didn't stop there, though. It came on in through the 90s even as well, with the advent of hazmat and the integration of all that training that goes along with hazmat into our fire department procedures. There were people then who fought that change, who said all that attention to hazmat was going to take away from the training we did for fire suppression. That was a pretty big change, one that was fought pretty hard, and now it's just part of what we do. I think the same thing was true post 9/11. With all the advent of terrorism issues and weapons of mass destruction, that training and that focus and that federal funding that came to us as a result of that was a major change for many of our organizations. Not only bad change, but part of that was a lot of the federal grants that came down that really changed the complexion of equipment, trucks, air packs, a lot of integrated material that we now use that we take for granted. There's a lot of people on the job today or volunteering today that don't remember that. That's a pretty big change. I think now today what we're seeing is the same thing's true with our emergency medical response. EMS is becoming a part of what the fire service does, and that's a pretty big change. Changing our call volume, changing our call volume focus, and it's something that we've got to adapt to. It's interesting, one of the changes I think that we're going through as well too is our change of social media. How we use these things that everybody's got in their pocket on a fire scene. That's a big deal. What do we film? What do we not film? What do we release? What do we use for training? What's the value of those things? What do we say or not say? And that change is pretty hard. The change of the generational differences that come into the fire service. As younger people come through and join and are used to these types of things, us older guys have to learn how to be able to adapt and utilize those skills. It's interesting, that same social media, just the other day I had the opportunity to see a post that someone had made about change. Said that firefighters basically are unhappy twice in their career. Once if nothing ever changes, the other time if something does changes. And those changes are pretty significant most times. And it's something that we can resist because we feel so steeped in our tradition or the way we've always done things, or be open to it. And I guess the question is you as a leader of any rank, volunteer or paid, how do you assess those things and how do you make a decision about those changes, and are they fads or is it something quality that we need to focus on? How do we know the difference between a change that is of value, something that we need to try, versus something that maybe just is a fad, something that's going through, something that's a notion that really hasn't any application to what we do? I think that's the key. How do we get thoughtful processes in your department, no matter what type of department you're in your station, on your apparatus, about a change or something that's going on with us? How does it apply to us? And have we brought others in to help make those decisions? It's been my experience that even the best leader, irregardless again of rank, can make a better decision if he pulls others in around to help evaluate that change and evaluate the significance that change will make and how to implement it. We want to be open-minded, yet thoughtful. Not knee-jerk in our reactions, yet make sure it's applicable. I think the best thing I have found is to try it, but be willing to admit that sometimes it just doesn't work. And how do we back up and go another direction? Egos get in the way a lot of time with change. An individual can be so set in their thought pattern that they are not amenable to change, or if change occurs, they don't want to change back if it doesn't work. So emotions and egos and change and the interpersonal dynamics that go along with that are pretty important. And landmines that you have to avoid or at least be aware of. So what do you want to do to make a change? How do you want to address or handle a change? Well, I just suggest that you take a moment to think about what you or individually or you as a department or a shift may be going through right now that's really a significant change or something that may be coming to you. And apply open-minded evaluation of how we can thoughtfully train on this, evaluate it, see if it works in real-life application before we make it policy. And once it's policy, how do we make sure we adhere to that and stick to it in a safe fashion that's going to affect our fire department for years to come? How do you make a difference and change?